Namaskar. Welcome to Reality Check 5 of our End Human Trafficking series. I'm Sunita Krishnan with my co-moderator Salil Kadir, welcoming you to a very unique webinar. Today we have our political representatives answering us. Is there a political will to end human trafficking? We've been running the series for the last 4 weeks, as you all know. It started on 30th of July when we had the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. And survivors from all over the country, Bangladesh, Nepal joined us. And one of the things that was said again and again was, why can't we have a deeper conversation with each of the stakeholders? And that's how the series was born. And we called it Reality Check. So for the last 4 weeks, we have been having very compelling, very honest, very introspective conversations with each of the stakeholders. On Reality Check 1, we had civil society organizations, and they spoke about competition for resources, donor-driven agenda, lack of skills, lack of perception, ideas about doing things rightly, corruption in the sector. Reality Check 2 brought two very eminent jurists, Justice Madan B. Lokur and Judge Swati Chauhan. And they spoke honestly about the gaps in the criminal justice system, the gaps in the court, gaps in the understanding of judicial officers on the issue of human trafficking. Reality Check 3 was very interesting with three super cops who spoke about why is there a perception about police being hand in gloves with the traffickers, to what is the huge gaps understanding human trafficking in the present trends, such as cyber trafficking, online trafficking, and things like that. And last week, we had public prosecutors, we had private lawyers who spoke about why doesn't the victim have the right to representation in the court? Today, we have an eminent panel, and I'm so honored to be even speaking with them because I've had the honor of working with each of these panelists in different ways. Mrs. Renuka Chaudhary, former Union Minister from the Indian National Congress. Dr. Ravi Kumar from Vidudulai Chirutaigal Kakshi, VCK, which is an alliance of DMK. He's a member of parliament from Lok Sabha. Shri Sujit Kumar, member of parliament Rajya Sabha from the Biju Janata Dal. We have Dr. M.K. Munir, member of Legislative Assembly from Kerala, from the Indian Union of Muslim League, and Sri Jatashankar Tripathi ji from BJP, member of Legislative Assembly from BJP. Welcome to each of our panelists. I'm so honored because we are bringing the cream of the political leaders among us. And I don't think that's representative of all the parties, but we have the best right now in the panel. Before we get into actual conversation, let me request Salil Kadir, who is the Cultural Affairs Advisor to the US Consulate of Hyderabad, who's my co-moderator and partner in crime in running this virtual series of conversation. Salil, over to you for the format of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Sunita. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for the introduction and welcome once again, all our esteemed panelists. We've been running this exercise for 5 weeks. It's been a learning experience for me, somebody who's, I think, coming from the outside, but is an ally to the cause. And one thing that has really helped us in ensuring that we have a good conversation is that we've kept everything very honest. Our questions are pretty straightforward, and our request to the panelists is please be as straightforward in your responses. This is a unique panel because this is a panel of political leaders. All of you have political affiliations, but the one request that I would make is you are here as people's representatives, as leaders who represent issues for the community. So I would request you to not bring forward your party positions or governments that you represent, but just speak about the cause and you as representatives of the cause or fighting for the issue. So that would be, I think, the best addition to this particular episode of Reality Check. Another couple of housekeeping requests as we go along. As I said, this program is going live. Just in case any of you drop out, please just drop in. We'll make sure the continuity remains. We have a lot of questions for you, and we have a lot of people watching this live, and they have a lot of questions for you too. So we want to ensure that in the hour and a half that we have here, we include everything, our questions plus questions from the audience. So my request to you would be that please be brief in your responses, 2 to 3 minutes per response, so that we can keep rotating it. We definitely don't want this to be 9 p.m. raucous, the nation wants to know kind of news channel. This is our group. These are our people, and so that is the only request that I have from you. So please, once again, keep your responses short. To the audience who are there on Zoom and also on Facebook, my request is please post your questions in the chat box either on Zoom or on Facebook, and we promise you we'll take up your questions as soon as we are done with our moderated share of questions. Please wait and listen to the panelists. Several of your questions will probably be already responded to as the discussion flows along. So with these few requests, I will turn this back to Sunita so that we can get the conversation rolling.
Thank you so much, Salil. May I request everybody who is there to please mute yourself so that we're getting a lot of sounds coming from behind, which will really become a hindrance when we are having a conversation. So, ma'am, I want to start with Mrs. Renuka Chaudhary, and one of my very favorite person. I have worked with her when she was a minister, Union Minister for Women and Children. Ma'am, when we were doing this, preparation for this reality check for this series, I had asked one of my colleagues to find, some good political leader from other parties too. So he spoke to, and I don't want to mention the state or which party or anything, he spoke to several of them. And he said, Smita, all of them said one thing, see, we are not very equipped to speak about this because we don't work on road safety. When so there's a whole gap. I don't. It's not just political leaders, but among various other stakeholders too. They don't even understand the word human trafficking. They think we are talking something about road trafficking, red light, green light, blue light, or something like that. So, what do you think? Does the political cadre of people, meaning the entire political leadership, even understand human trafficking as an organized crime where human beings are sold for exploitation, as something which is a billion-dollar industry? Do they understand human trafficking at all?
No.
This is Renuka Chaudhary.
Sunita, let me congratulate you at the very outcome of for you having organized this kind of a discussion and dialogue, which I think is very, very important in today's time, more so during the COVID time, because you see how the atrocities against women have risen. Also, it's amazing what you summarized what the other three meetings were about, and you had the judiciary and the police and everyone in. I think we are the last link, the politicians, so who come into this. But you're absolutely bang on. Politicians are funnily inhibited about talking about this subject, and as a social body, we tend to be hypocritical. We want to whitewash everything and say everything is wonderful, and we've brought in these laws and legislations, but there really is no understanding. It is not a TRP rated subject unless there's a rape or a kidnap or something like that. It's not prioritized in parliaments. And I don't know about assemblies, but I can speak for parliament. It's not prioritized as a subject in the agendas. And it's unfortunate because when you don't speak about it, it doesn't go away. It's there in your face, happening every day under our purviews as elected political representatives. And the saddest thing is, so few of the trafficked victims can actually reach us. So few of them have access to a political representative. There's so many hurdles that they have to cross before they can even access us. And that's unfortunate. So the good thing about technology today is that this has given communication where people don't have to physically come to us and we hear the most heart-rending stories and the most cynical approach that we have to this subject, and the hypocritical double face that politicians are forced to say. Sometimes we are also compelled to articulate something which we don't believe in. Either there's a party line, or it's politically not correct, or it's happened in the state where you are your government is in power, so you don't speak about these things. So there is a huge gray area when you look at the black and white of law and articulating it in a social sector.
Thank you, Renukaji. You've kind of set the context for this. I'm going to come to you, Dr. Ravi Kumar, with my next question, and I'm just going to go slightly deeper into this issue of trafficking. So basically, when we look at trafficking, we understand that it thrives on the deepest vulnerabilities of the communities that are involved, or the victims, the communities that these victims come from. And for any political leader, or any leader for that matter, who's working at the grassroots level, they will definitely see what the dynamics are there, because they are not they're not unaware of the issues that are there within communities that are vulnerable to these problems. Now, if you look at any political leader, or any leader for that matter, they have gained prominence by championing the causes of people, the issues of people. That is their biggest platform as they grow from a grassroots level leader to a leader of prominence. Now, how is it that when they're talking about issues of food, shelter, road, Sadak Bijli Pani as they call it, how is it that an issue which is as important as human trafficking misses the attention of a political leader, or is never or rarely ever part of their agenda? Dr. Ravi Kumar, to you.
Yeah, first I want to thank Ms. Sunita for inviting me, for giving me the opportunity to interact with persons like Renuka Chaudhary ma'am. She is one of leaders who took the issues of women and children, and she was a minister. And yes, I am a first-time MP, and when I went to Lok Sabha last year, so I took many issues related to human rights, because basically I'm a human rights activist. I worked with PUCL. I was the president of PUCL Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, and worked for several years. And still I feel myself as a human rights activist. So I took many human rights issues. First, I submitted a private member bill about the Data Protection Act and other things. And I have posted some questions on human trafficking also. But in the Lok Sabha, the system, they select questions in a lottery. So it doesn't come last year. This year also, for this session also, I have posted some questions. I asked some data, but it didn't come up. So Mamsi Verma is known to you, I think. She helped me getting the questions, and we posted some questions. And we all know in 2018, the NDA 1, they have introduced a bill, anti-trafficking bill 2018, but unfortunately the bill lapsed. When we go to the parliament, there is no bill. So there is no opportunity to discuss about these issues. Yes, it is a very, very important issue because I'm working on NCRB reports. And for your information, I only asked the raise the issue in the parliament last year because the government, they didn't publish the NCRB report for 2007-18 for up to 2019. So after my intervention only, they started publishing the report. In few days ago, they published the 2019 report. And yes, the NCRB reports only give data, the details about the human trafficking incidents and the cases. Unfortunately, Tamil Nadu is also one of the top states, top 10 states in the human trafficking issue. Most of the cases involved are forced labor and bonded labor, and also prostitution. Yeah, we worked in rescuing bonded laborers when I was involved in PUCL, and I have also raised the issue of POCSO related crimes also. And I met personally the women and children, the development minister, Srimati Smriti Irani, and I think I'm the only Lok Sabha member who reviewed the POCSO cases in my constituency with the district superintendent of police, and found 90% of the POCSO cases are not come to trial. So this thing, what the problem is, every special act, whether it is a POA Act or a POCSO Act or any special act, the act, they prescribe a special court and a set of police officers or the system. But they normally they designate the sessions court as a special court. That's all. But particularly the POCSO related case, they insist. The Supreme Court also insists a special a separate building because of the vulnerability of the children who are exploited. But when I asked the superintendent and collector, they coolly said, there was no money to construct a separate building. So I informed the thing to the minister concerned, Minister Madam Smriti Irani, and she told, that we have sanctioned sufficient money to every state. That's all. So if we enact a special law, an anti-trafficking law, it's a fate of that law also like this only. So we have to work to strengthen the mechanism first. And before that, as you said, as Sunita and also Renuka Chaudhary said, the sensitization. Oh, sorry. The sensitization of the political class is very, very essential. That I need intervention from organizations like you to sensitize us. So if you help us to pose any questions or kind of intervention, and definitely I am there to work with you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar. Jatashankar ji, namaskar. Aapka swagat hai. I would like to take from where Ravi Kumar sir has said about sensitization. Sujit sir, to you. Hundreds of children. I want to focus on children because at least children, there is no, there's no second opinion. Everybody understands and actually agrees that no child should be raped, no child should be trafficked, and things. The hundreds of children are trafficked in this country for labor, for bonded labor, for beggary, for prostitution, for pornography, for all kinds of purposes, and these are mostly flagged by NGOs. Is it because that children do not have a voting ability that child trafficking also does not become a priority for our political leaders? Sujit Kumar.
Thank you, Sunita ji. At the outset, let me compliment and commend Salil and you, Sunita ji, for hosting this very, very critical dialogue on ending human trafficking. And also thank you for inviting me to be part of this reality check 5.
Thank you so much, sir. We are not well, and yet you're participating.
Yeah,
so grateful for this.
I'm having fever and headache. So I apologize in advance if I cough while speaking. To answer you, Sunitaji, yes, absolutely. It's a very low priority issue for political parties and for political leaders because children who are the worst victims of human trafficking, they do not bring any electoral dividends. They do not vote. So there is no vote bank associated with children and hence no electoral dividends for political parties. This is why the response of political parties to this very challenging issue is nowhere near the proportion it should be. The first step towards solving any challenge, any societal challenge, is to acknowledge that the challenge exists. Uh, I regret to inform you that most of the political class, and again, there are very notable exceptions. I do admit that there are people who are doing amazing work in all political parties in the issue of human trafficking, but by and large, the political class is completely unaware of this issue. So I, for instance, know so little about this issue, and when Salil asked me if I would be willing to be part of this, the primary reason why I agreed to be part of this conversation is to learn. So I think the gap between the awareness and the cognizance of this issue and the reality of the necessary parity amongst the political parties and political leaders is lacking, and this is where the children have to suffer because of lack of political parity.
Thank you, Sujit Bhai. Thanks once again for joining us. It was just a WhatsApp message that required you to say yes, and we really appreciate the fact that despite your ill health, you continued to be part of this event, and more importantly, a very honest confession that this is all a learning experience for several of us, including me. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'll continue the conversation, and I'll go to you, Dr. Munir. And this is something that I have seen. I'm a Malayali, so connected to Kerala. I've seen these issues on that side, but on our side, I'll talk about some issues that we see here in Hyderabad. That very often there are some very regressive social norms or basically community practices that are factors behind trafficking of young girls, and these could be exploitative conditions, say in practices like the Devadasi system or the Sheikh marriages that we see here in Hyderabad, or the Arabi Kalyanam as we see in parts of Kerala, where very young little girls are sacrificed on the altar for the dedication in the name of marriage or a custom. Now, what we also see is that political leadership, instead of pushing for social reform to end these evils, are silently endorsing some of these practices. Are silently endorsing some of these practices, and so my question to you, sir, is why is the political leadership wary of taking up such cases?
Salil, please mute everybody and just unmute Dr. Munir. Sick. Dr. Munir, the question is to you.
Yeah, I couldn't get the end of the question.
Salil, do you want to say the end of the question? Or
Yes.
Should I? Yeah.
I'll just repeat myself. Sir, why is it that despite all these regressive practices around, we see that the political leadership is sometimes wary of taking on these social practices, probably because there is fear that they don't want to upset their constituents? Your response to that, sir?
Yeah. Regarding the Arabic marriage and all, it's a story which happened long ago, and it's even not only the political leadership, even the religious leadership is not going with it. the thing is, the political will to crack down the illegal human trafficking. When there is a law coming in, everything will get into that. But we can see the political will, what happened to the previous human trafficking bill of 2018. And it had a very hot debate on that, heated discussion. Amid the heated discussion, Lok Sabha passed it, but when it came to Rajya Sabha, we couldn't make it, and it got lapsed during that ministry. So again, the bill has been is now being relooked, and it is before the group of ministers now. What we see in the National Crime Record Bureau's 2019 data says that 1 out of 2 person who have you are getting trafficked is minor. And also, the records say that it is the male children more trafficked than the female. So, what should be incorporated into the bill is there should be a definite database on what's happening around us. So a lot of discussion should have been happened on this judiciary and police, everything. But the very the public servant themselves is getting involved in all those issues. We can see Sundar Krishnan herself she was looking after our social justice department for making a policy, a Nirbhaya policy in our state. What we have seen is the sensitization should happen at the lower level, from the head constable, from the police and the lawyers and the judges who are looking after the cases. So lot of street track courts should come in. Everything can come in line only if the main bill is passed. So the political will should be to pass the bill. Then everybody will come in line. All the religious leaders have to come and they will have to obey the rules. Then this Arabic marriage or anything that will become an illegal thing. Here in Kerala, with all, broad-minded people coming together, we could the child marriages which was happening in the villages, we could stop it strongly with our law in place. So this is what first the political will should be, to have a strong law on this. If we are not able to pass this bill again in at least in this parliament, then what will be the situation of the children? We cannot think about that. Now, recently, what happened in this country, we have seen it. In Kerala itself, we can show that there is a IPC 370 says about a consent. This consent is misquoted, and a 11-year-old girl, she was raped, and it was written that she did a suicide. And the police came with a report that this 11-year-old girl and 8-year-old girl, both of them were killed, actually killed. The police said it was with the consent that the rape has happened. How pathetic the police is acting in this. Here, if the political leadership don't have the guts or the will to crack down this, then for whom we should blame? So I am self-critical. I was a social justice minister, and still even in Kerala, the situation still is like this, means it is my failure. So if every politician comes, I am not attending here as Indian Union Muslim League leader or something like that. I'm attending as a politician who should think himself and be self-critical. There are ex-ministers here. I am very proud to be in this webinar because Renuka Chaudhary, the ex-minister, is here. So everybody who are the policy makers are together here, and Sundar Krishnan, who fought for this with a public interest litigation and made the government Neil and came with this anti-trafficking bill. So I hats off to Sunita Krishnan also for conducting this webinar.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Your appreciation really matters. I don't want any governments to kneel. I just want them to do something. And I hope that in our lifetime, we will see an end to this modern form of slavery. जटाशंकर जी, आप आ गए, आपका स्वागत है. मैं आपसे सवाल पूछूंगी. हम ये सवाल को इंग्लिश में भी ट्रांसलेट करेंगे, लेकिन पहले मैं सवाल में हिंदी में ही पूछूंगी, क्योंकि जटा भाई हिंदी में बहुत जबरदस्त आंसर देते हैं. हमारे देश में जो मानव दुर्व्यापार की जो समस्या है, पूरे देश की समस्या है. हमारे देश के अंदर हर राज्य से अलग राज्यों के साथ होती है, हर जिलों के बीच में होती है. लेकिन एक छोटा मुद्दा ये भी है कि बाहर के देशों से, यानी बांग्लादेश और नेपाल से भी होता है. हम ये पूछना चाहेंगे कि आपके जो राजनीतिक नेता हैं, जिन्हें 1 सेंटीमीटर लैंड के लिए, यानी एक छोटा जो हमारा बॉर्डर है, बॉर्डर में हमारे एक सेंटीमीटर लैंड के लिए हम लोग इतना लड़ते हैं, लेकिन हजारों लड़कियां वहां से 10 साल की, 12 साल की, 13 साल की, 14 साल की लड़कियां, उन्हें मानव दुर्व्यापार में बेचा जाता है नेपाल से और बांग्लादेश से. क्यों ऐसा है कि जमीन बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हो गई है मनुष्य के जिंदगी से? जटा जी, आपसे ये सवाल कर रही हूँ, and very quickly want to translate this question in English. We have the problem of interstate trafficking, we have a problem of intrastate trafficking, but it is also a reality that we have a significant percent from cross-border trafficking from Bangladesh, Nepal, and other countries. So why aren't the political leaders able to pressurize the government for a bilateral agreement, for a multilateral agreement to tackle cross-border trafficking? Is land more important than human lives? जटाशंकर जी, सवाल आपसे है, क्यों हम नेता लोग मिलकर गवर्नमेंट के ऊपर प्रेशर नहीं लगा सकते हैं बायलैटरल और मल्टीलैटरल एग्रीमेंट के लिए कि नेपाल से कोई बच्ची हमारे यहाँ पे बिके ना, बांग्लादेश से कोई लड़की हमारे यहाँ पे बिके ना? जटा जी.
Smita, I'm afraid he may have dropped out of the call. He was there when you started the question, but then suddenly his camera's gone off and he's dropped out of the call.
जटाशंकर जी, आप हैं यहाँ पर? Rajesh, does anybody else want to answer this question if Jatashankar ji doesn't come into? Jatashankar ji? Okay.
No, Smita, no, he's not here.
Renuka ma'am, do you want to take this question? Audio.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I just want to remind the panelists that where children are concerned, for the very first time in the history of independent India, we had constituted the NCPCR, the National Commission of Protection of Child Rights, so that children will be having a forum on which they can articulate their problems and that they will be responded to. This was established when I was Minister Women and Child. We had set it up for the first time ever. That's just for information.
Ma'am, Jatashankar ji has come back, ma'am.
Oh, let him.
I will.
That's okay. That's good.
Sorry, ma'am.
Not at all.
Jatashankar ji, आपने सवाल सुना, please? जटाशंकर जी?
हाँ, अनम्यूट हो गया था.
जी, बताइए, आपने सवाल सुन लिया था?
हाँ, सवाल सुन लिया था.
जी,
वीडियो मेरा म्यूट है, स्टार्ट वीडियो नहीं है.
हाँ,
लेकिन मैं बोल रहा हूँ, कोई बात नहीं.
ओके, बिल्कुल. बताइए प्लीज, आपका वीडियो भी ऑन हो गया है?
जी.
और धन्यवाद आपका कि आप फील्ड से हमसे बात कर रहे हैं. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आप प्लीज कहें, क्यों राजनेता लोग गवर्नमेंट पे प्रेशर नहीं डालते हैं कि नेपाल से, बांग्लादेश से कोई लड़की हमारे यहाँ पे ट्रैफिक नहीं होना? बायलैटरल एग्रीमेंट और मल्टीलैटरल एग्रीमेंट बनाने में हमारे नेता लोग क्यों सक्षम नहीं हैं अपने सरकार पे दबाव डालने पे?
एक्चुअल में सबसे पहले तो मैं अपनी पुरानी दीदी को प्रणाम करता हूँ पहले, और अच्छी बात यह है कि पूरा सैल्यूट और अच्छी बात यह है कि अपर्णा भट्ट से लेकर करके रेणुका जी से हम लोग बीना में मिले थे, और ऐसे ऐसे पूरी टीम को एक बार आपने मुझे रिकॉल करा दिया पुनः अपनी नई टीम के बीच में। मैं अपने पाकर को बहुत ही तीव्रता और इच्छा शक्ति को तेज महसूस कर रहा हूँ आज अपने को आप लोगों के बीच में पा करके। इसके लिए प्रज्वला का और आप सब लोगों का और अपने सभी गेस्ट का सैल्यूट। और जहां तक बात है, जो आपके सवाल का उत्तर है, जो मैंने 3 वर्षों में अनुभव पाया, हमारी श्रेष्ठ रेणुका जी हैं, अन्य लोग हैं, हमारे मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट भी मैं सुन रहा था उन लोगों को। हकीकत क्या है, मुद्दे के प्रभाव पर जनता के वोट बैंक के प्रभाव को देखते हैं। हम लोग इमोशनल तो है ही नहीं है। कोई भी पॉलिटिशियन अगर आज बोल रहा है तो बिल्कुल झूठ बोल रहा है कि वह पॉलिटिशियन इमोशनल है। माफ करिएगा रेणुका जी, आप बहुत सीनियर है, मैं अभी 3 साल का बच्चा हूँ आपके क्षेत्र का, लेकिन माफ करिएगा दीदू, मुझे 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 ये लगता है जैसे हम लोग काम करते हैं तो हम लोग बिल्कुल में हमको पार्टी के अंदर बोला जाता है अभी कि आ गया वो सामाजिक नेता। वो नेता नहीं, ऐसे बोलते वो आ गया सामाजिक नेता, मतलब वो इमोशनल है। तो हम सब लोग ये देखते हैं कि मुद्दों में बड़ा मुद्दा क्या है, 130 करोड़ को क्या प्रभावित कर रहा है, और 130 करोड़ के माइंड सेट को कौन चैलेंज कर रहा है, वो मुद्दा हमारे लिए महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा होता है। हम लोगों के लिए मनुष्य में बच्चा बच्ची और बच्चों की वुमेन ट्रैफिकिंग, ये हम सब लोग इस पर फख्र महसूस कर, प्रज्वला दीदी आप और अपर्णा पूरी टीम, नॉट ओनली फॉर दी, मतलब मुझे लगता है कि ये 20-40 लोग जो पूरे हिंदुस्तान से रिकॉग्नाइज लोगों के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, वो अपने आप को फख्र महसूस करें कि आज हम सब लोग पुलिस को ट्रैफिक से एंटी ट्रैफिकिंग के रूल की तरफ ला करके खड़ा कर दिया। और आज पूरे दुनिया के लोग इस बात को जान चुके हैं और जानते हैं कि ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग क्या होती है, क्या नहीं है। और ये हम लोगों के आज के 20 साल पहले 2000 के आसपास की जो लड़ाई की दिन है कि आज हम लोग ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग इश्यूज को जानते और समझते हैं। लेकिन कमियां हमारी आपकी है। प्रज्वला दीदी, आप क्यों नहीं एमपी हैं? आप बताइए ना, आप क्यों नहीं एमपी हैं? आप वहां से मेज के उस पार बैठ करके शोर मचाने से आपका काम नहीं चलने वाला है। गलती हमारी और आपकी है कि हम और आप, मैं अकेला व्यक्ति हूं जो 25 साल की सामाजिक जिंदगी को चैलेंज करते हुए इस मेज के उस पार आया, और मेज के उस पार आकर करके इसको समझने की कोशिश किया। अब जो एंड ऑफ ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग का मुद्दा है, उस ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग के मुद्दे पे बच्चा और बच्चे के केसेस और केसेस में प्रोसिक्यूशंस का जो एरिया है, उस प्रोसिक्यूशंस के एरिया में हम लोगों को ये बात समझने की जरूरत है कि हम सब लोग मुद्दों पे आधारित काम करते हैं, और उस मुद्दों के आधार पे जो बिग इश्यूज है, जो पूरे साउथ एशिया कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, रीजन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, देश के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, जो ब्रॉडर पर्सपेक्टिव्स को हमारे पॉलिटिकल एजेंडे के अनुसार जो इमोशनल सेल हो सकता है, वो मुद्दा हमारे लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। हमारे लिए देश का अभी भारत में, हमारे देश के अंदर, भारत के अंदर बच्चा अभी महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है। मैं आपके इस और अनौपचारिक सेल पे कह सकता हूँ, और ये लगता है कि सब लोग इस बात से सहमत होंगे। अगर ईमानदारी से ये बात कह पा रहे हैं तो मैंने आपको 1 इंच जमीन और एक बच्चे के दोनों के पहलू और कोर पहलू के बीच में जो अंतर है, उसको मैंने कॉन्टेक्स्ट को समझाने की कोशिश किया है। जी दीदू।
थैंक यू जटा भाई।
Thank you so much, Jeta Shankar ji. I'll just, before I go on to my next question, just translate very briefly what Mr. Tripathi said. I think he was most importantly, I think in the vein that we started off in being absolutely honest. He has also been very honest in confessing that the reason why these issues are not important is because for a politician, they are not emotional about issues. They are looking at issues that actually address a larger number of electorate, and so it purely translates into vote bank politics. And so that is something, very honestly, that he has confessed. Um, and he is, as an activist before he actually took on this role as a lawmaker, he is proud of the fact that our police has today understood trafficking not as an issue with broken traffic lights, but actually of humans being smuggled and sold. So that is an achievement of activists like him and Dr. Smita Krishnan and others who are out there, that they have been able to redefine and make people understand what human trafficking actually stands for. And he's also thrown a challenge to you, Sunita, that you now need to join our esteemed panel on this side. And I've been telling you that for some time now, that you can also make changes by taking on a political role, the role as a political leader, and then make changes from within. So that is another point that he makes. And finally, he's reiterated what Sujit said, that children are not really a vote bank. So as long as they are not a vote bank, they are a minority, they don't really impact policies, they will not figure in the scheme of things, and they will continue to suffer. That's the point that Mr. Jatashankar Tripathi made. So thank you, Jatabhai. Thank you so much for that. Renuka ji, I will come to you with my next question. Dr. Munir spoke about the anti-trafficking bill, and when this bill actually came to Lok Sabha, we did see that there were, understandably, several divergent views that were expressed. And divergent views are always appreciated, and it's good. But several times it was based on a misunderstanding of the entire issue. There was conflating of trafficking with sex work, and the ability for people to decide on their own what they want to do. Now, is it so difficult, given the gruesomeness, the nature of this crime, this organized crime? Why is it so difficult to form a uniform understanding and create a common consensus, a common platform to end human trafficking in India?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, to start with, let me tell you, public representatives who reach parliaments and assemblies are from the same social fabric of the society that we live in. We come from there. We haven't exactly dropped in from heaven. So, and we carry with us the baggage of social hypocrisy and the perpetuation of myths of what is Sushil and what is Ashil, and the division of perceptions as we are viewed. So irrespective of the age that we are, we have to, they want us to be innocent and not talk about such subjects. Now, it's unfortunate that we live in a society that is so hypocritical. And when we talk about sex education in schools, there's a huge resentment. You have families agitating. When I brought in the Domestic Violence Act, I had people saying, save the family. And there were people outside agitating on the curb of the ministry. When we bring in accountability in trafficking, we said if there's no demand, there'll be no supply. So to hit the demand, we have to make the customer liable. And down the chain, you should have seen honorable colleagues reacting. It became a very personal thing, and then they overreacted, each one acting as if they're higher and purer than anyone else. This was not about pointing fingers to any individual, but for the collective problem that we face. When the local police comes to an elected politician and says, give me a posting in such and such an area, where we know that there are the sex workers there, and we know that that's a trafficking zone, why would these police come to you and ask to be posted there? It's our responsibility as public representatives to look into that and say that you will not be posted there. And what is your ulterior motive in reaching there? Social behavior. Do we believe that women wardens in our welfare hostels are much more ethically responsible or morally above board than the men who stay there and rape the children? or traffic the children. Worse, they farm them out to various places. Many social factors like poverty, households where the woman is the head of the house, where she's finding it hard to make ends meet and look after and cater to the family. Employers who exploit people who come by, all the uncles of families who take the children to the cities saying that they'll be working in beauty parlors and are sent off to work in suspect spas and, areas like this. Now, this becomes the social hypocrisy covers all of us. And it's funny that even when you're sitting in camera and you're discussing with colleagues, first they're horrified if women like me talk about these subjects. I've actually had colleagues coming up and saying, "Aapke liye ye bada nazuk portfolio hai." I mean, there's nothing nazuk. It's the most unnazuk thing that's happening. It's the most cruel, terrifyingly mean and vulgar side of humanity that we see, that disregards another human being and doesn't look at what happened. Look at what happened with the migrant laborers in recent times. Are we ever going to sleep with our conscience and say that, yes, it was okay? Those people walked back in that blistering sun, terrible inhuman conditions that they went home to. Are we going to now look back and say that a rape never happened? In 3 days ago, the most ghastly, cruel act on this young Dalit girl. And girl, period, never mind the caste and everything, that those are different factors. But are we going to live in denial that this girl didn't even, it's like nobody dropped the Babri Masjid. Now everyone's absolved. And these are the political compulsions. So it is a big challenge. It is hugely challenging to bring colleagues onto the board and for all of us to come to a consensus, because there's a blame game that goes on there. It becomes a men versus women. It becomes your state versus my state. It becomes articulating about anything becomes a challenge with the party itself, because the parties don't want to own this kind of thing. So we see that political immaturity and the social hypocrisy that binds us together and compels us sometimes to say that this is not an important subject or sweep it under the carpet. We have challenges in the police stations where the police actually abuse the women who go to complain. If you remember, we had a huge case in Delhi, in the government, where the Home Secretary's wife went to complain and it became a big drama about her divorcing him. She had a reason to divorce the guy, right? If he was trafficking his child, his own child. It's the most heinous side of human nature. And we don't want to address it. I think it's because the truth is uncomfortable. It causes us pangs, and socially, politicians are not schooled in the language and how to speak it and how to challenge these issues, because people are uncomfortable talking about these things. So it's embarrassing, it's socially not compatible, it's actually not a subject that we should be talking. Why don't we go into something else? And these diversions and dilutions come in, and the issue remains a burning wound in the geography of our nation, that it's so humiliating to think that we can put people onto the moon, that the world comes to India for launching their satellites in the world space, and yet we can't contain human trafficking, that we debase our own citizens, our children, who we all at election time say this is the future of the nation and blah, blah, blah. But we don't actually address what happens in your own districts, at your mandal levels, what happens to these women who come out for employment, what happens in other countries. I had gone to a foreign country, a Middle East one, and for reasons I won't mention names because we have bilaterals on so many countries. And I was horrified that there were 62,000 women who were taken from one district in erstwhile Andhra, and combined Andhra at that time. and who were totally sexually exploited. They had gone, and these intermediaries who give them fake visas to travel abroad and collect huge sums of money. These women go there, their passports are seized and kept by their employers. The employer rapes them. They're dumped with false cases saying the iron got spoiled and the microwave got spoiled, when in fact they've been handed over broken down stuff, and they keep them as prisoners. This happens across borders, it happens internally within our country, and we have to have a collective pride as a nation that we don't allow these things to happen to our daughters, to our sons. And my honorable colleague was absolutely right. It's, I don't know if the more boys are trafficked than girls, but boys are equally trafficked, and this is where you have a gender reverse bias against it. Nobody talks about the sexual exploitations of boys or the trafficking of boys for sexual reasons, child pornography. It's the most horrifying thing that you rob a child of their childhood and traffic them and force them into the most unnatural acts. Childhood and these sexual acts and debase and trafficking are oxymoron. They don't go together. And you can't take away a human being's dignity and their right to live with that dignity. We pass legislations, we bring all this about, but implementing is the need of the hour.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was for me very heart touching and kind of resonates from what we think. Dr. Ravi Kumar, I want to continue with this very uncomfortable line of thought. On the ground, at the grassroots level, whenever there is a case of child marriage or a girl rescued from brothel, or bonded labor, anything, one pattern that we see is it is the local political leader who will play the obstructive role. He or she will be the one who will be actually playing a very disruptive role in actually supporting the accused. So the kind of perception that we have about political leaders today is either you are protecting the accused or you're making a public spectacle of victims. How can we change this perception? Dr. Ravi Kumar, to you.
So, yeah, sorry, the connection, I went, they disconnected and reconnected. So I didn't hear you well. So
May I repeat
please,
I will repeat the question again,
please
Dr.
repeat
Ravi.
again. Yeah.
Dr. Ravi Kumar,
Yes.
whenever
Yes,
on
yes,
the
yes.
ground at the grassroots
Yes.
level, whenever there is a case happening, whether it is child labor, child marriage, or a girl getting rescued from a brothel, most of the times what we see is a
Yeah.
local political leader who will play an obstructive role, meaning actually trying to break, that kind of a rescue and standing by the accused. So the kind of perception now we have about a political leader at the grassroots level is either they are with the accused and protecting the accused, or they are making a public spectacle of victims. How can we change this perception about the political leaders? Dr. Ravi Kumar, are you with us?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. The ground level, the grass level, most of the politicians, particularly from the ruling parties. See, we are also politicians, but not part of ruling class. So the most of the person, because they only have the power to obstruct or protect the criminals. So most of in most of the incidents, the ruling party people, whether I don't want to name the political parties, yeah, mostly the ruling party people, they play a role in protecting the criminals and the accused person. And it's true, but person like us, the politician like us, we are always standing with the people, and we are fighting for the cause of the people, and we are working for that. see, we are, yeah, because of that, because of our position, and we are facing many hardships from the ruling class. So, for your information, some people were rescued in my constituency, and as per the law, they have to get the relief amount from the government, but they give part of the money at the time of the rescue, but and later the government officials, they don't give the remaining amount. So we are writing a letter to the collector and the state government, and nothing happened. So these are cases. Most of the bonded laborers, the rescued, were not paid the relief amount eligible for to them. So and also the the case of sexual trafficking or people rescued from brothel, I didn't face any such incidents, any case here, but when I was the human rights official, we took many cases of custodial rape, and and we found, for information, the first inquiry commission appointed by the National Human Rights Commission, when it was instituted, the first commission was appointed only at Pondicherry, where we took the case, a custodial killing, and it's also involved with the sex workers. A pimp who was killed in that incident. We worked with the sex workers, and we fought for them. And 13 policemen were arrested and they were suspended, and we stand with victims. We didn't hesitate to stand with the sex workers in that case. They are also human beings, and they have all the right to fight this kind of discrimination and inhuman acts. So, what I ask, Madam, particularly Madam Renuka ji, in the party like Congress, national parties, they need a separate wing to sensitize their legislature, whether it is parliamentarians or MLAs. It needs an organization like for example PRS, what PRS is working in Delhi. They are sensitizing, they are equipping the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha members and about bills and acts. So such an organization is needed to every political party, particularly the national party. They have the resource. So if they, particularly about the issues of women and children. So the parliamentarians need sensitization about the issues of women and children. So
I think Dr. Ravi Kumar,
mechanism is needed.
yes,
Yeah.
Dr. Ravi Kumar, totally agreed. I think it's not just Congress, but every party needs to build their cadres in terms of understanding these issues, and they have to have some mechanism. I will continue with the same line of thought. Shri Sujit Kumar, to you. When Renuka ma'am spoke about the social fabric and the social mindset and perception and prejudices, and as a leader, we expect people to go about it, but unfortunately, they don't go. But some perception like a child in a brothel, for example, or a woman in a brothel is required. This is a necessary evil, and this is the oldest profession, and therefore this should be thing. this is the kind of perception that several people who have the power to change things, who are considered as lawmakers have. How do you think we can change? Because this is this particular perception that woman as an object is required to gratify the desires of men is something that we are seeing across the board. But when it comes
Yes.
at the political leaders level, it also means that our laws might get that tinge. And therefore, I ask you, how can we change this kind of deeply prejudiced mindset of political leaders? Because they have the power to change things from wherever they are sitting.
Well,
Yeah.
I completely echo what Renuka ji was
Yes,
pointing out.
the-
Uh, Sunita ji, is this for me or for Dr. Ravi
Yes,
Kumar?
yes, for you, Sujatji.
Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree to what Renuka ma'am was saying, and we all know that trafficking or exploitation of women or crime against women is a socio-economic issue. And the response, whether it's a political response, and because we are here as political leaders, I'll talk about the political response. The political response is shaped by the societal response, because again we go back to the core issue of priority, because the society is not seeking accountability from political leaders. Society is not seeking accountability from political parties when it comes to crime against women or children. Political leaders are casual about this issue, or they're able to get away without taking these issues very seriously. It's a very low priority issue for political parties and for political leaders. Ask every political party whether they had this issue in their manifesto, election manifesto. I will be honest to admit that my party did not have it. We did have a section on children, but that was largely about child rights pertaining to education, pertaining to their health, pertaining to nutrition, very critical and important issues. But what about trafficking? What about exploitation of children? We didn't have anything on these issues in our manifesto, and I have studied the manifesto of Congress and BJP for sure, at least in 2014 and 2019 elections, and they did not have it. And I think most of the parties, or probably all of the parties in India, wouldn't have this in the manifesto. So that tells us a lot about the seriousness and the importance that we attach to the issue of trafficking, we attach to the issue of exploitation of children. One study which really stood out for me, and I take pride in saying that my party has been. I don't want to make it a party thing, but it's important to lay it out here. Is the study? There is a study which shows the direct linkage between adequate representation for women in our assemblies and parliament and the reduction in human trafficking. BJD in the 2019 elections had 1/3 of its candidates for the Lok Sabha as women. And we reached out to almost every political party in the country, urging them to do the same. So we need to bring women to the forefront of political leadership. When political leaders, they are societal leaders. When we speak about issues, then the media takes note of it. Then district administration takes note of it. Last month I was attending a DISA meeting in the district of Kalahandi, where I hail from, and it was a 3-hour meeting. Less than 8 minutes were devoted to discussion on children issues. In a 3-hour meeting, less than 8 minutes were devoted to discussing children issues. So that we were discussing about roads, we were discussing about NREGA, we were discussing about COVID management. All those are very critical and important issues, but so are children issues. So if we have so little time to discuss on issues pertaining to children, that tells why we as a society or we as a political class have failed in addressing these issues.
Thank you. Sujit bhai, I think you make a very very good point. I think there have been several studies, including some done by PRS, which Dr. Ravi Kumar also mentioned, where more women in our elected bodies, in parliaments, in legislative assemblies, have led to laws that are better for women or more in favor of women. And it is true of every organization where a lot of our laws or policies are made and women are not part of it. And we've seen the negative consequences of it. So, you make a valid point here. My next question is to Mr. Jatashankar Tripathi, but once again, I think we have lost him here. I don't see him on the participant list, but I'll throw this question out, and I'll see. I'll have to play a little bit of a dice game here and see who I can address this. But it applies to everybody. This question of mine that, and this is something very interesting, that when horrifying issues, and some of you, Renuka, you just raised in your response, when these horrifying issues and these incidents happen, there are people who are highlighting these. There are, civil society is raising it, media raises it in its own way, political parties raise them in their own way, but in general, our society, the common man, the common woman, they are also raising these issues. But when these issues are raised, it is somehow interpreted that it is a matter of shame, so we should not be talking about it, or that it is showing the country in poor light. And so this is a bahar ki sazish, so we should not talk about it. How do you think we can change this view, this perception, and how can we make actual political parties come out of the state of denial? So I don't know who wants to take it. Smita, do you want to suggest that we
Renuka ma'am is
we can definitely
most. Renuka ma'am, you want to take it, please?
They just unmuted me. See, this is the conspiracy of silence that is foisted on women in their own homes and in society at large. When we bring legislations into the country which alters the status of women, it's not as a feminist issue. Many people see that and assume that it's a feminist issue and that we are saying women are better than men. It's not. When we talk of rape in a marriage, people are shocked, horrified. He kya hai? Biwi to hai. So women should be allowed, they should satisfy the sexual craving of their husband, whether she's in the mood or not, whether her health permits her or not, whether she doesn't want it. But and when you bring legislation into the bedroom and you say that she's authorized to say that she does not want to have marital sex with you, or that she's being raped under pressure, it becomes a matter of horrific subject. Kya hai? Kanun kahan kahan ghusegi? And there's that. But this is altering the mindset. It's a chain, and it has a ripple effect. Every time you bring a law that alters the status of women, why is it that we fight for reservation in parliament? It's not because we want to come and replace men. That's lacking in ambition for us. It's not enough that we just come to say 50% men and 50% women. And so now parliament is going to function uniformly and on equal measures. Not at all. It doesn't give us level playing fields. But the social prejudice against women who cross their home and hearth and come into public life, are not there because they're qualified to come, are not there because they're intelligent women and that they contribute to the GDP of this country, are not because they're equal to their colleagues and they have passed the same exam as the man and come into the workforce, but they are as perks for the women in the boardrooms or wherever. That we are there for them to appreciate or for decorative value. And of course, we have to work twice as much to prove. This is not a feminist rant, but this is the reality check. So if you want to alter mindsets, it took us so much to ban child marriage. It took a man initially. And in so many years, when we said, okay, the sarpanches will report it to us, we never got any reporting. And we called them and I said, what's wrong with you guys? 6 child marriages have happened and you didn't report. They said, madam, hame election jeetna hai, hum election jeet ke aate hain. If I report that, socially I'm ostracized and the next time they won't vote for me. So the mathematics of politicking compels a lot of political parties to steer their parties to safety through the stormy waters. So until we said that every person will be culpable and I can throw them all into jail, including the Brahmin who's conducting the puja for the marriage and the tent wala who supplies the tent and the flower wala and the food supplier, they'll all be prosecuted and they'll all be sent to jail. We couldn't get a handle on the situation. So it is a very tricky balance that we need to maintain to be able to push through social change. When we first came to Parliament, I came 35 years ago, men actually said to us, "Kitna shobha deti hai jab aurat sar dhak ke aati hai." I have nothing against women ढकोing their heads. But then when I said, "Kitna shobha degi agar aadmi muंह ढक के आएगा," there was an outrage. How does a woman talk like this? How can she talk like this? She. And you know, the small examples which come into your daily life, which gender specify and push women into those stereotypes and push men equally into the stereotypes. It takes very brave men to break out of that stereotype and stand up and say, but I respect this woman. I'm not Joru ka gulam. I'm her partner. And I will stand by her. I respect my wife for what she's doing. Respecting women is an alien philosophy in our country, as it is about children. Children are extensions of us. So they don't have any rights. They don't have any thoughts. They have to obey parents for whatever the parents say. And in that obedience, they have a future. Otherwise, they are antisocial elements. So we abuse our own children at homes. Home is the biggest perpetuator of this gender divide and these discrepancies that come in. And money, when a woman is not financially independent, then she becomes subservient and dependent on the man. Did it take rocket technology for us to say that a woman is the natural guardian of the child and not some loafer on the roadside who could come and sign your child's guardian, father or guardian, not the mother? Why? Why did it take us so long in this society to say that the mother is the natural guardian of the child? The father has to be certified by us. We'll tell you if the child is yours or not, otherwise you go do a DNA. But that was an alien concept. Women articulating, saying things, coming out into the open challenges male authority in the traditional sense. And so a lot of men, I've had DGPs of police talking rubbish, saying, I will not allow women to sit in a bar in my city. Your city, my foot. A woman can't sit. There are laws that say that at 10 o'clock, if a woman is found sitting in a bar where she's paying for her drink herself, by the way, and she's contributing to the GDP of the country, but she cannot sit at a bar, they'll shut the bar and take off the license. But a man can sit. I said, if the problem is with the men who are misbehaving, put them inside. Let the women go. Keep the men home if there's a problem with man's behavior. What makes him believe that he has a right to, what was that Vanar Ram some Sena in Mangalore, who goes around hitting girls who are sitting in restaurants and bars? They don't contribute to their education. They don't contribute to their future. They don't deposit any money. What gives them the authority to go and slap somebody else's daughter on a moral ground? So this dichotomy of this moral guardianship which men bequeath onto themselves, and these rowdy elements who start moral policing us, who tell us how we have to dress, how we have to get off. Women ask for rape when they wear some other dress. Which fallacy is this? The women who are unbathed lying in hospital with a disease who are raped. Is there an answer for that? We have a rule that says women cannot be called to a police station and detained in the station after dark. Why? Because they are not safe in the police station. How sad. What a terrible statement that is for the police, because they're wonderful policemen. They're great police who have brought about so much social reform. And partnerships between public representative, police, policymakers will give us that conduit to a changed society. And we need those partnerships. Not all men are bad. Not all police are corrupt. Not all politicians are, perpetuating crime. No, there are few rotten apples spoil the whole barrel of apples. But that's not the issue. The issue is that we learn to address this. Media. Media plays a huge role. What is this nonsense? That poor young man, that film star who died, and all this drama, all the WhatsApps are on public platforms. That's tampering with evidence. And you have police coming in and giving comments. I was minister when we had the Arushi murder case, and had some moronic police fellow who's telling that she's as characterless as her mother. We don't want character certificates from the police. We don't need it. And this attitude that we have, Sita, Ramayana mein Sita is the most worshipped woman because she's so pativrata. Sita was a fantastic female. She was not just pativrata. She knew how to wage war and how to use weapons and her father trained her. And she chose the man that she wanted to marry. Do the men today who worship Sita allow us to do that? They don't.
Ma'am, if I can intervene, ma'am, I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, I go off onto it.
Yes,
So
yes.
what we need is to change. Why I was illustrating is it's to alter the
Absolutely.
mindset that
Absolutely.
believes that a woman is there for your entertainment. Parliament has commented on our sizes, on our colors, how our laughs remind them of negative characters of lower caste, but not of virtue.
Yeah.
So women are victimized in many ways. And when it comes into a social dialogue, when we talk about bringing more women, the critical mass that is required for policy making, you need to bring them in to get a holistic approach of what a law should be. And we
I
need
think-
men to partner us.
Ma'am, thank you so much. You brought some very, very critical point. One is the conspiracy of silence, which is the reason for denial. You also brought in a very important point, ma'am, about partnership between all stakeholders, which actually is not just bringing synergy in action, but also changes the perception of the way we do things.
Yes.
Because then there's so much of depth and richness that comes from different perspectives. I want to go to Dr. Munir. Talking big things and all these rhetorics and speeches and everything is fine at one end, but budget and budgeting becomes one of the key factors. If your mouth is not in the right place in terms of where you're putting your money in, all these could be just big shusha. But very, very shockingly, every year we see huge amount of Nirbhaya fund which is unutilized. At the same time, you see schemes like Ujjwala scheme, Renuka ma'am was responsible for that scheme, Swadhar scheme, shelter home, government shelter homes, in such bad state because of lack of funds. Why do you think this is happening? Are the political leaders unable to understand the needs of the victims? At one end, you have unutilized funds. At another end, you have no allocation of funds. Where is the problem? Dr. Munir, to you.
Yes, we talk a lot about gender budgeting. We talk about the local self-governments looking after issues like this. There are a lot of committees to look after that. But still, when it comes to reality, the budget allocation is actually not meant for building shelters or rehabilitation centers. The first priority goes to infrastructure development. They want to, because the politicians want to show that at my period, this number of bridges were built and such number of roads were PM, made BMNBC. So the priority of these shelter homes come to the last. You should have experienced it when you were in Kerala to put up a Nirbhaya center at the capital and to have the permission from the Chief Justice to have 3 speed courts. Still now we have only 1 speed court at Kochi. We could have easily made it at Trivandrum and also at Calicut, so that all this issue, a little of this issue should have been solved. But this is what happening is our response to all these issues nowhere is near the proportional of the brutality happening. So here, what we have to find is the budgeting is very important. When women and child, as I was a women and child minister also at that time, we were compelling the finance minister to get a fund allocated for building a gender park. As Renuga madam said, gender park is not for any single gender. First, the sensitization should happen in men, because men should be more aware of what's happening with the women in our state or in the country. So because of this, there is no sensitization. As said, the axis should be the police. All the stakeholders should come as an axis and work on this. So everywhere the budget has to be split. The police should get enough fund for anti-trafficking. There should be a separate fund for the agency who look after or is vigilant on any trafficking is happening. The rehabilitation process, how should it happen, and the relief, how should it be dispersed. There should be a clear picture in the budget itself. The same way, if a speed court has to be established, the finance has to have a priority for that. So prioritization is very important in budgeting. When the priority comes, as you said, the children has no vote. They are not vote banks. They are the least bothered people. So here, as Sunita said, it's very important. The budgeting is very important. We talk about gender budget in the local self-governments. Gender budget is to have Jagrada Samadhis. Jagrada Samadhi can have a place where the shelters can be built at the local self-government level, so that more people can get relief from this. The number, we actually don't know what the data is about. There was a report from Thomson Reuters Foundation. The 550 women, they all together came with a report that the dangerous country in the world for women is India. Whether it's true or not, the data will have to talk about that. But if that is the case, we all are responsible for that. Every state has to have their own interference in this. Many ministers have tried their level best to do that. But what happened is, end of the day, the finance is the department which come with a clause. They just want to bulldoze everything. And they say the financial position is very weak when they talk about these things. And in some other places, the finance, they spend lavishly, which is not I don't say it is important, not important, but the priority, in the priority, these children and those who are victims of this human trafficking should get the priority. Then only we can be proud to say that we respect the individual, or every individual in our country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Munir. And I'm just so shocked. We have been talking for the last 1.5 hours. and we are nearing 6 o'clock, and I know Dr. Munir has to leave, and Salil has another event at 6:30. So I'm going to just give one last question to all the panelists. Very quick question, which has come from several audience directly to my WhatsApp. So I'm just asking this question to all the panelists, starting with you, Renuka ma'am. What and this answer, please give it only in 1 minute's time, less than 1 minute perhaps. This is a rapid fire kind of thing. One gap in the political system, and what is the remedy for this in addressing human trafficking issue? And my request to all the panelists, please don't repeat what the other panelist has said. So one gap in the political system in dealing with human trafficking issue, and how can that be remedied? Renuka ma'am, to you.
Yeah, it's non-prioritizing. It's non-prioritizing. It is not seeing victims of human trafficking as citizens of this country and that they are relevant to the system. It is bypassing them. How do you remedy that? Partnerships. Great partnerships with all the stakeholders, invincible laws which cannot be shaken, rehabilitation of victims to ensure that they get a right to their life, as well as identifying perpetuators of this crime, ensuring that there is public knowledge about who they are, in naming and shaming them, and the laws itself, which are so ambiguous and porous, that need to be tightened.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I will go to you, Dr. Ravi Kumar, with the same question. What are the gaps in our responses to human trafficking issues, and how can we remedy it?
So legislation is one part, and then implementation is the other part. So at the implementation level, there is a big gap. There is the insensitivity is a basic reason for not the proper implementation of the laws. So we have to. I want to emphasize the need of the sensitization of the political class, particularly say Law Commission, and also Election Commission of India has a role to sensitize the political parties. They must include the proper section to ask the political parties to set up a mechanism to sensitize party office bearers and members issues related to women and children. That can be easily done. So it's a responsibility of the Election Commission to find a way to sensitize the political parties, particularly registered political parties. And one more thing I want to say: the most of the children rescued from the human trafficking is from the railway station. I came to understand from reports, and so the training the TTEs, the ticket examiners, and railway employees related with this issue, we can rescue more children. And also they use the traffickers use mostly the public transport system, trains and buses. So you have to set up a specific cell in a big railway stations, particularly like junctions, to look after the children who are trafficking, who are being trafficked. So we can easily find out the children and we can rescue them. So this is another suggestion.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar. Sujit ji, to you, one gap in the political system and how can you remedy it? Please don't repeat what Renuka ma'am has said and Dr. Ravi Kumar has said. They have spoken about sensitization. They have spoken about training. To you, Sujit ji.
Well, I think even at the cost of repetition, I have to say that the biggest gap is priority, and I think the remedy lies in making this a high priority issue. If the civil society and the citizens, the voters at large, demand accountability from the political leaders, from the political representatives, then this can become a high priority issue. And the second remedy, I would say, is what Dr. Ravi Kumar was mentioning regarding training for elected representatives, not only for the MPs and MLAs, but right from the grassroots, even PRA members, because they are the closest to the community and such an important part, such an important stakeholder in this entire conversation. They should be trained from the grassroots to the highest political level. We need to train our political class on anti-trafficking issues, on issues of sexual exploitation. Frankly, I mean, PRS is doing training for the MPs, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a serious need for training our political class on this issue.
Thank you, Sujit Bhai. I think you've given us an important next step. In fact, on the training sensitization bit, both you and Dr. Ravi Kumar, and it's a challenging task, getting the political class and at all levels going right to the grassroots. So the final word, Dr. Munir, to you.
Thank you very much. First thing needed is the consensus of all the political parties to come with a foolproof legislation that the act should be passed. And the political parties should take a decision that if any political persons are involved, or public servant, or those working in shelters, or they should be prosecuted as aggravated crimes. It is in inverted commas, aggravated crimes, and also the immunity of the victims and the protection of the witnesses is very important. In that, political party has to take an initiative that if that things comes, we are one apart from political alliances. We as citizens of India has got the responsibility to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Munir. My God, I'm so overwhelmed with this conversation. This has been an amazing reality check, and to have such fantastic political leaders actually restores your faith in political system, because the politicians that we see out there, sometimes we get so caught up and we get prejudiced about them. And it's so wonderful to see leaders like you all who restore our faith in our political system. Today, we on this reality check 5, we have spoken about several things. We spoke about sensitization, we spoke about training of political leaders from the grassroots to the top, spoke about accountability, we spoke about how we can get human trafficking in the manifesto of political parties. We spoke about women in political leadership. We spoke also about conspiracy of silence and altering the mindsets. But we also spoke about partnership, and with partnership, what Dr. Munir said, I want to highlight that, a consensus in political parties that this is not acceptable. We will have zero tolerance to human trafficking, and with political consensus, we will bring the comprehensive bill to end human trafficking. That today is the greatest takeaway of today. And thank you so much, Mrs. Renuka Chaudhary, Dr. Ravi Kumar, Shri Sujit, and Dr. Munir and Jatashankar ji. You're not there, but I know several of your team members are here. But thank you so much for restoring our faith in each one of you all, because you are our hope. You are what gives us hope in the system. You are the system for us. And thank you so much for voicing our concerns so loudly and so beautifully. Thank you. I can't even describe the gratitude I'm feeling at this moment. But today on Reality Check, we had a very, very important conversation. But this conversation is not ended. On Reality Check 6, that is the last of the series, we will have survivors of human trafficking questioning all the stakeholders. So tune in next Friday at 4:30 p.m. on Reality Check 6, the last episode of our series that I and Salil Kadir are hosting, and watch survivors grill all the stakeholders. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much to all our guests on Zoom. And thank you so much to all the FB Live audience who are watching this. Thank you, Shivratri. Let's create a world which is free of human trafficking. Let's make India trafficking free. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Sunita, for raising our conscience.
Thank you.